What is up, everybody, and welcome to FLW Videos. In today's episode, we will be exploring the second episode of the series known as the Deep Dive, where we take a look at a Pokemon highlighted in Pokemon Go, talk about it from a raid perspective, PvP perspective, should you unlock a secondary charge move, and then of course also taking a look at its future value if it is applicable. In this case specifically, Latias actually gets a Mega Evolution, so we will be talking about that towards the end of the video. But anyways, if you do enjoy this type of video in this series, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. And without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the video. Latias with a max AP of 3,510. Latias is a dual type of dragon and psychic typing. If we go ahead and take a look at the weaknesses and resistances for Latias, you will see a pretty big spread among this. I'm personally not a big fan of how many weaknesses it has. It actually has 6 on the screen, and then at the same time, it does have quite a bit of resistances, so who knows, maybe they cancel out from a PvP perspective, but we will save that a little bit for later on in this conversation. But let's go ahead and dive into the statistics of Latias. If we go ahead and take a look at the overall ranking of 22nd in Pokemon Go, that is absolutely fantastic. Its best stat being its defense stat, followed behind by its attack stat, and then its stamina is actually the lowest stat of them all, ranked out at 123rd. If we were to take a look at the overall moveset available to it, it's definitely kind of a good thing because we do have access to Outrage from the rating perspective, and then of course Dragon Breath to get ourselves either a double dragon type moveset, or we even have the ability to get a double stab benefit off of that psychic typing, but we'll talk about that once we dive into some of the raid results. So let's go ahead and dive into that first. So when we talk about Latias from the rating perspective, I really thought of it being useful in 2 different ways. The first one, of course, being as a pure dragon type attacker, and then secondary would be actually a pure psychic type attacker. But to be honest, the psychic typing attacks kind of gets held back because psychic is not that great of a move. There's so many more that outclass it. So yes, I went ahead and decided, okay, what would be the best one to go up against? Decided to pull up a Machamp, and then you had to scroll down a little bit to finally find Latias. So it didn't do too well from that perspective, but there is a little bit better results if we are talking about from the dragon typing. So the first one that I wanted to take a look at is actually versus Latias itself. If you go ahead and check this out, you will see that Latias is considered to be the 11th best option. So of course there are a couple above it, but keep in mind there's just so many weaknesses that so many Pokemon can really be coming from so many different angles and really kind of be unkept from Latias as far as its moveset is concerned. Another option that I thought was a pretty cool one was actually versus the brother of this Pokemon, and that is Latios. If you go ahead and take a look at the raid results, you will see a slightly better result where Latias does manage to pull out the number 8 spot. So yeah, that is from a rating perspective, not necessarily the best that I would consider. So if you're trying to look for a Pokemon that's worth powering up, especially from the rating type standpoint, to be honest, I think Latias is something you should hold off on. By all means, go out there and raid, have some fun, get yourself some shinies, and probably look at it like a chance to gain yourself some charge TMs, some rare candies, just kind of like a resource. People are definitely out there loving to get that shiny, but as far as like usefulness is concerned, it's not currently as useful as who knows what it may be in the future. But yeah, we'll be talking about the Mega Evolution at the end of the video. But now let's go ahead and dive into some PvP. So when we talk about PvP, keep in mind that when we brought up the number of weaknesses, it is such a wide variety. That for me personally is holding it back a little bit. And then secondarily, although Outrage is like the best dragon type move that you want to have from a rating perspective, as far as in PvP, it's now been upgraded to where it's just a 1-bar charge move, and it's not necessarily the most ideal from a dragon typing. So as far as those factors are concerned, unfortunately Latias suffers a little bit more, but there is one positive that I absolutely wanted to go ahead and point out to you, and that has to do with the CPs that you can get during a raid. If you were to go ahead and check out the CPs for a weather boosted version of Latias, you will see that it gets slightly above 2,500 CP. So basically, if you're below like a 95 or 94%, then you have a very good chance of it automatically qualifying for the Ultra League, which I personally think is awesome. Anytime you have a decent Pokemon that you don't really have to invest any Stardust in, I definitely think that this is one of those Pokemon that just kind of lucked out kind of where it falls. So if you catch yourself a weather boosted one, definitely consider holding it if you are interested in the Ultra League. Now we have another question in regards to a secondary charge move. So as far as secondary charge moves are concerned, the main focus that most people want to have is 1, either coverage, or 2, just an amazing move that could maybe provide some side benefits. But in this case, Latias actually doesn't have a good secondary charge move that you would ever want to unlock. Even something like Thunder, like, it doesn't provide any type of coverage versus any of your weaknesses. So because of that, because of Psychic doing the same thing, I'm personally recommending you to go with a Double Dragon and probably not unlock a secondary charge move. Plus it costs 100 candy, so you know it's going to be quite a bit from that. But hey, that's my own opinion, but I definitely wanted to pass it on to you. So I mentioned that we would talk about the future of Latias. Now I have to say, this is something that if you are aware of this in the future, you are definitely going to be ahead of the game in regards to other Pokemon Go players. Well, my friends, Latias actually has a Mega Evolution, and if it becomes available in the game, it could actually get some viability. It already has some decent sets of stats, like it has a good defensive stat, it has a fairly good attack stat. Now, there are a couple of other Dragon types that will also get a Mega Evolution available, but Latias could surpass some other options, like maybe a Dragonite, for example, and especially like non-legendary options, so definitely keep that in your back pocket, maybe consider that, because a Pokemon that's this bulky could end up being fairly good. It kind of reminds me of like Lugia, for example, in the Masters League, an absolute monster. It could become effective, like I said, with the Mega Evolution, so I definitely want to pass that on to you. But anyways, I hope you did enjoy this episode. I want to go ahead and end on a question of the day. How was your Clamperl day? It was absolutely amazing for me. I ended up catching myself a shiny Shelter on the first water type Pokemon that I crossed during the event. Got all of the Clamperl evolutions shiny. Definitely had an exciting time, but I definitely want to know what you think about that, as well as Latias. Do you think it is going to be relevant in the future? Do you recommend powering it up now? Definitely let me know all of that in the comments section below, and I will see you next time. I wanted to extend a huge thank you to the supporters over at Patreon. You definitely make this possible, and I 100% appreciate this support. If you are interested in supporting my channel on Patreon, definitely feel free to check out the link in the description.